Good evening, Tigard community. I hope you are out there enjoying this great weather. I understand tomorrow might be a little bit of rain, so I will completely understand if you are doing something besides listening to me on Facebook Live. The good news is this is recorded and you can get your information at a time that best suits you. For those who may be tuning in for the first time, I am Chief McAlpine, your Tigard Police Chief. The way this format has been working and working well, I believe, is I'm here really to answer your questions. What is most immediate on your mind? What are your concerns? What can I do to give you that information? As always, we have updates too that I'm prepared to give you as well. So while we're waiting for those first couple of questions to come in, I do want to give you some updates. First and foremost, what has Tigard Police been working on since the community expressed concerns following the killing of George Floyd? As you can only imagine, there's a lot that we have been doing across this country, in this state, the region, and also in Tigard. But specifically, let me talk about what we are doing. Of course, just like tonight, we have been doing a lot of Facebook Live listening, both with the mayor. I've had a chance to sit in on his fireside chats, council outreach, and then, of course, our own chat with the chief. And so get a chance to really hear the concerns of our community. As you may recall, I did present to the council a couple months ago on the 8 Can't Wait campaign and how Tigard Police Department measures up. And I rated us a 7 out of 8. With the one that I believe we didn't measure up on was use of force continuum. But we do have something that I think is actually better, which is federal law. And since then, I believe DPSST, or the Police Academy, has also been talking about why we've moved away from the force continuum. Other things that we've done that I'm really excited about and want to just spend a couple moments on is we have created a transparency webpage on our website. And let me talk a little bit about what that entails. So again, how can we be as transparent as we can to our community so that you can learn a little bit more of how the Tigard Police Department operates? What are some of the important data that is available to you? Things that we've heard people call in about, we want to make that at your fingertips and kind of give you a one-stop shop and continue that transparency. So once you get a chance to go into that webpage, we do want to hear back from you on if there's other things that you would like to see on that webpage. What you will see is we have a couple of sections, 3 sections. You'll get policies that we have in place under our current leadership, and it goes all the way back to 2017 since we've become Oregon accredited. What the immediate steps we took after the murder of George Floyd. So we try and keep that relevant and up to date. Actions we're taking going forward in partnership with our city leaders and community members. So on the right side of the page, you'll find a lot of data, including my chief's monthly dashboard. This is what I report to once a month to the council. That's crime trends, calls for service, and other hard data. Our stop data, that's our traffic and pedestrian stops that were mandated in the state of Oregon. We have 1 year's worth of data that we just completed at the end of July, and so that's available for you to review. And then our use of force statistics. Right now, again, we have an annual one, but we're looking to see if we can break it down into more in-depth, and we're working on that. And then, of course, there's links and video messages from our department. You'll hear from me. And then, again, access to our full policy manual. So if you would please check back often as we update, and if there's something missing, please let us know. We are committed to equity, transparency, and accountability today and every day. And to access this, remember you can go to tigard-or.gov, police transparency, and I hope you enjoy that, and again, look forward to your comments. And then again, what are we doing? We're also looking at the cost of implementing body-worn cameras and vehicle dash cameras. This was unfunded equipment that's not currently in our budget, so we're going to look at what that looks like, and this is all part of the police reform. We heard from a lot of you that expressed an interest of us to have body cameras. Right now we have 7 deployed, but all of our police vehicles do have vehicle dash cameras. So we're looking to transition from vehicle dash to maybe all body worn. Currently right now our school resource officers, our traffic officers, and our canine handlers have body worn cameras. The other thing that we're working on is working with the mayor and the council on our transformational commission concept. As you can see on the webpage, the city's webpage, we're still in we want to hear from the community. But this was born out of your conversations with your elected officials on some concerns you had both nationally and maybe the opportunities to do something locally with your police department. So we're still taking feedback and comments on the draft proposal. So we hope to hear more from you on if we're meeting the mark on the concept of that. And if you call in and say you'd like to hear more, I'll go into more depth about what that transformational commission concept looks like. Also, what we've been talking about is, again, the national narrative is to get police out of schools. As you know, Portland decided not to continue with the school resource officer program. And so we are in discussion with Tiger-Tualatin School District on vetting out whether or not they want to continue the school resource program or modify it, make it look different perhaps. And so we are engaged with them in a partnership to use a third-party vendor to facilitate discussions that we hope will start in a month from now. And then hopefully have feedback from students and also from parents on what you'd like to see. So look more for communication from TTSD on that outreach. Of course, we will also post anything on our website that you can link into as well. So for now, the school resource officers are not starting back in the fall, but again, that's not going to be an issue because the school won't physically open in the first couple of months. So we have some time to really vet this out and hear from our community. And then again, from the state level, there's a lot of legislation going on about police reform, and there's 10 specific topics. Again, I can share those with you if you choose to, or send in saying, yes, please let me know what those topics are, and I'll be happy to talk about them. Thank you, Lorraine, I'm glad you enjoy these chats. I do very much. Of course, I do miss the actual verbal, getting to see you in person and to have those conversations. But I think this is working well under a COVID time. So keep them going. And thank you, Brett, for your positive comments. This is really for you, all of you out there, on what you want to hear from me or what you'd like to see your police department do. So I do really appreciate when you taking the time to give me the feedback that you have. Okay, we have a question here on update on the photo enforcement program. As you know, we rolled out speed through intersections. It really started July 1st, but people were not receiving violations until July 14th. Some people have asked, will those photo enforcement, whether it's speed or red light, does that impact your insurance? Well, it does go on your driving abstract record, and so your insurance company can look at that. They can decide whether or not to increase your rates or to drop you altogether depending on your driving history. So those citations do count on your driver's record. Another question we have is, what is the status of National Night Out? So again, under COVID, we didn't have it happen in August. We're looking at rescheduling October 6th, and we will obviously need to evaluate whether it's safe, or be creative like we have been, and do we want to do a virtual, or do we want to do a drive-by and wave? There's all options are on the table if we want to get creative. So again, Stephanie, our community outreach coordinator, loves to hear from you on your thoughts on that. Let us know. So another question is, how is the Tigard Police involved when it comes to violations of the mask mandate for the state or for gatherings of large crowds? The governor has always said right from the get-go is she's just seeking voluntary compliance. She would like to not have law enforcement be the enforcers of this. We have other compliance agencies that will look at businesses, whether they're complying. And so for us, if we do get a call, it's going to be education. If you're at a park and there's a large gathering, we get a call and we have to respond. It's going to be with the ideology of educating you and telling you, hey, this is probably not, this is exceeding the limit, or maybe if it's past family members, that's usually when we're going to get involved. I've heard from a few of you, I've acknowledged it in the past that we are mandated to wear masks as well. If we have the 6 feet distancing, outside we don't, but we've required our officers to wear masks, and there are times when our officers have not worn the mask. I do hear from you and I do address it, so we're not above any of the governor's mandates as well. One of the things that a concern that came up that you may find interesting is a community member asked, they were concerned about swatting. If you haven't heard what swatting is, and that's really when you, the police departments, they'll call into 911, they'll usually say something very egregious is happening, high priority, a home invasion robbery, maybe somebody's trying to a domestic where somebody's has a weapon, things of that nature. And the whole point is to flood all your emergency response. They call it swatting because usually it's at a high level that if an agency has a SWAT team, they would deploy that as well. And we have had that happen in Tigard not that long ago. Back in March, we had a call of a domestic where somebody was saying they were killing their wife, that they were going to kill them. And of course, you can imagine, not only did all available Tigard officers respond, detectives, even higher command staff, we all responded, but also other agencies. And there was about a 30-car response into this neighborhood, only to find out that it was in fact a swatting incident. Everybody was safe. In fact, the homeowners were at work. We were able to make sure that nothing was going on inside. The good news is we take them very serious. We worked with the FBI, was able to find that the call came from the East Coast, and through the help of the FBI, we were able to actually make an arrest. And so they're very serious. But we have experienced that in Tigard, and we do take them serious and investigate them to the best of our ability. So Michael says he appreciates many of the positive things he sees in Tigard. Thank you, Michael. I've enjoyed, being here for 3+ years and really like where Tigard is going and in the engagement. So thank you for those positive comments. Aaron, you applied for a job as a background investigator a couple months ago. How long is the process? And I would be a great diverse addition to the team. Oh, well, okay. Thank you for applying. And we are working on that. We actually have those assigned to sergeants because we have currently 2 background investigators that are handling all the officers' positions that we're trying to hire with the passage of the levy. And so we need help, and that's why we've solicited more background investigators. I am told that I might be able to see those background packets next week and get more people on board. So hang in there, Aaron. We appreciate it. So we had another question recently. If you're not familiar, we have a Can You ID Me page on our website, and oftentimes when we get videos from our businesses or where a crime has been committed and we don't know who they are, we'll post those on the Can You ID Me page. And basically, we're asking for the community to help us out and tell us, do you recognize this person? Somebody was concerned that by doing so, we were shaming individuals. And, you know, the intent is not to shame, but the intent is to identify those who have committed a theft, a shoplift, high-end property crimes, anywhere we get videos where we don't know who they are, and we're hoping the community does. So it is with an effort of holding people accountable to make our community safer. And if that causes our criminals to be uncomfortable, then we've probably accomplished that, or maybe they'll think about going somewhere else to do their thieving, if you will. Another question is, it's not a question, it's a comment. We want to remind you that we do have online reporting now. Again, those are low-level crime with no suspect information. We did that primarily for two main reasons. One is with our increased calls for service, some of those low-level crimes, you are waiting a lot longer than we want you to. And so we want to make it comfortable and easy for you through your mobile phone, at home, on your laptop, whichever, to report those crimes. So one, we know what's happening in our community, and you're also getting a case number if it rises to the level of an insurance claim. So again, www.tigard.or.gov, report a crime, and you can do your online reporting. The other thing is for us, that allows us to free up to focus on more of the higher level crimes in progress or follow-ups that we don't normally get to do because we're taking other reports. So, and we've seen an increase that rolled out in the 1st of June. So some people are utilizing it. So just want to, again, make sure that you know that is a service available to you. Also, we want to remind you that you can use a non-emergency number to report concerns. Sometimes people go to social media and want to talk about an abandoned auto, parking, maybe even a juvenile party. And just a reminder, the social media sites are not monitored 24/7, and our people usually day shift, they have weekends off. And so we miss the opportunity, if you don't call in the non-emergency line, to actually perhaps, if we have an officer available, to actually go to that maybe loud party in a park or an abandoned auto that we can actually drive by. Maybe it's stolen. So don't forget to use that tool if you want to get the opportunity for us to address it and not wait 3-4 days later when we come back to work and our folks that monitor our social media sites then see that and a couple days have gone by. And that goes for, if you did not know it, also when you see concerns about traffic safety concerns, traffic configurations, if you think something is unsafe, modification, things of that nature. For example, I think on Dartmouth and Pacific Highway, somebody thought that it was a little unsafe. Well, again, go to our website under report a traffic concern, and if it's a structural thing, our traffic engineers will see that. And if it's just an unsafe where we can do an enforcement or education, our traffic unit will take a look at that. So again, that is a resource for you. JP asks, do you think that diverting resources from the police department to other departments such as mental health, social services, family counseling, etc., and again, noting that some departments may not yet exist, would be a good idea? Yes, I do. And I think you will see that most police officers will tell you that as well. Several years ago, when basically states The federal government stopped funding mental health care, some of these other social services, it fell on to police departments to basically have to handle these. And we do to the best of our ability, but we also know that we're just a Band-Aid. We're addressing a symptom or an action at the moment, and we're only as good as the resources we can take them to, which is usually outside of Tigard, going into a hospital or other social services within Washington County, but many of them are not located in Tigard. And so I think that as we're talking about, diverting police department funds and going into social services, we have to have a plan. And right now, Tigard doesn't have those services in place here, and we're relying on very stretched Washington County services. But I think we'd all like to get out of the mental health and homelessness business ourselves. Some of our levy updates. Again, the funding is kicked in starting in July. So there's a couple of priorities. Obviously is to hire the officers, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. What we're seeing is there is still an interest out there for people to do the job. We have currently about 20 that are in various stages of the background process. Those are very lengthy processes. As you can imagine, we're doing a very deep dive. We do our due diligence on who we're even thinking about onboarding. And so we have hired one that starts December 8th, and then we have two that are lateral officers out of state, which means they're currently officers in another department out of state, and I've given them conditional offers, and I'm excited that hopefully we get to announce and onboard them. And two of the three currently are people of color. And so I'm excited about what they will bring to our department and to our community. As far as the crisis intervention and de-escalation training, under COVID, we're finding that's harder to get that training kicked off because the one that I want, the 40-hour advanced, requires in a classroom, hands-on, role-playing, bringing in subject matter experts, bringing in people who experience mental illness, talking to the officers, and all of that. So that's looking like that'll be sometime maybe in February. We're looking at some other training that we can do online to keep us going, but definitely COVID has put a hamper on that so far. Okay, and the other question following up on the hiring is how long before we are fully staffed with the levy funds? It's really hard to say. And why I say that is because I've given 3 other conditional offers only to maybe have them not pass the psychological. And so you're basically then starting all the way back to square one with the next applicant. So these take time. And as one of the other callers came in and said, as they acknowledged, hey, we're trying to onboard more background investigators to help us get through this process a little bit faster. Obviously, if we can do a mixture of lateral, knowledgeable officers and entry level has to go to the basic law enforcement academy, and that also takes time. So my hope is to get us through this first year on board. We had 3 vacancies along with the 9 from the levy, so that's a big number of 12, and we've just started with the 3 that we have given offers to. So we're making headway, but it does take time, and we're not going to lower our standards. We're not going to cut corners just to onboard people, because that will not serve any of us well in the long run. So Max is saying, I'm taking my preliminary law enforcement test next week. What qualities or experiences are you looking for in a potential officer? Hey, thanks, Max, for being interested in law enforcement. It's a great profession. I'm very proud of it. And, really listen to what the community is asking for. For me, I'm looking for a guardian mentality. I'm looking for somebody who wants to serve our community, but also wants to engage with our community, an effective communicator, If you have a diverse background, I want to hear about it. How you've exposed yourself to different cultures. All of those things we're looking for when we onboard here at Tigard PD. So go check our website. I have my expectations, what I'm looking for. All of that is going to be helpful to you. Get to know the Tigard community and what they want in their law enforcement officers. We have a great relationship, and we want to onboard people that want to continue that interaction and support. Lorraine, do we currently have new officers at the academy finishing up? Yes, we do. We have 3. And there was a big pause. They had only been there for about 2 weeks when COVID imploded and the academy shut down. We came back, we kept them in their training, but they still need to go back to the academy. They went back in July, and so they have the big bulk of their academy still to go, and then they'll come back. So 3 are in the academy right now, so thank you for asking. Dave, thank you, Chief, and all our law enforcement for their service efforts to keep our community safe during these challenging times. Dave, it is my honor and pleasure, and thank you for the support. And I also want to just give a shout out. As you know, law enforcement has taken a hit, and in some ways rightly so, and in others I'm glad to see people are evaluating each department on their own merits of how they serve their community. And I just want to thank everybody that has expressed their support for this police department, and from the men and women who, patrol the streets every day, that means everything to them. So thank you for your support. And as always, we always look to see how we can provide a better customer service. And when you're in an authoritarian position, we know that we're not always going to please everybody. But if we can do it fair and impartially, we'll keep providing that service. So Sherry says, you're doing an excellent job communicating with the citizens. Appreciate you. Thank you, Sherry. And I appreciate that you taking the time to listen and to provide that feedback. So the next question is, how is COVID affecting the department? And do you have enough PPE or personal protective equipment? We've been fortunate, knock on wood, which I don't think I have anything real handy, that we haven't really had any exposures. I think if you followed the news last week while I was on vacation, we did have one officer exposed or spit on by somebody who had tested positive. We did all the proper quarantine of the officer, and then she'll be coming back soon. So each day is really an unknown as far as what we're going to get into. But right now, thankfully, we are able to have enough protective equipment on hand, and we seem to be doing okay. But you're just one bad exposure away from possibly wiping out a squad before we know that a person has tested positive. So we keep doing. We take our temperature. We check on everybody, and so far we're doing well. So thank you. So Aaron wants to know, if you followed protests in Portland and other big major cities, you may see questions or interests or demands of concerned citizens. Do you guys take those questions or comments back to your department and discuss what would be proactive or deal with issues as they arise? We do follow the protests, both in Portland and other major cities. We do see the concerns of the community, in particular Portland, because as I'm listening to the legislative session on this joint committee, they're taking testimony. So I do hear comments and concerns from Portland community about what's happening, the protests, the riots, both pros and cons of Portland Police Bureau's response and also the Fed response. So we do track all of that. Because we are a neighboring city, we have to know what is happening, because it may come into our community, and are we equipped to handle that? So far we've supported peaceful protests and march, and people have been fantastic here, and I've had an opportunity to walk beside our community. And I know that there are more planned. So so far, things are going well, and I appreciate, our response from our community on how they choose to exercise their First Amendment rights. Irene says, thank you, Chief, for your transparency as best you can. Have you spoken to other police chiefs about understanding the BIPOC police brutality concerns and doubts? Yes. Yes, I have. So if you're not aware, there is a Washington County Law Enforcement Chiefs Association. So all the chiefs in Washington County talk, and we talk about what each of our community members, especially the BIPOC community, on the concerns. So what is happening in Hillsborough, what's happening in Beaverton or Washington County. So we do try and, first and foremost, we want to know what's happening in our backyard and in this region. And then as we go, what is happening in the state. And then, of course, I have to see what is happening across our country, because we get questions about that. And so I do stay in touch. We bounce ideas off each other on how we do outreach and the things that we find that might work, we share. So we do have a great network and ability to communicate, and we will continue. Representative Doherty, I appreciate the department's professionalism. You represent Tigard well. Thank you, Representative Doherty. And again, thank you for your service. Thank you for your testimony in these legislative sessions. We appreciate that. I know that you are well informed and you have the interest of our community. And so I really do appreciate the partnership. Aaron, so I misunderstood. Okay, sorry. By concerned citizens, I meant the protesters. I was thinking that people might want things from the police department. Again, concern for the protesters or for those who are peaceful protesters and may get washed up into those that might have a different interest. Aaron, need a little bit more clarification, and I'll be happy to answer that, so send it in. Again, some of the, as you're thinking about your questions, what are the things that I want to update you on? Oh, on the photo enforcement, again, especially with the speed intersection, remember that's 11 miles per hour over, and we're seeing hundreds of violations, and that is a big safety concern. So please, along 99, please watch your speed. I know we get a little excited when the fact that traffic is moving and we can move freely along 99, but just remember on 72nd in a long haul, we have speed through intersections. Please watch your speed. What trends in crime are we seeing? A lot of it is property crimes right now. We've seen an increase in counterfeit money that's trying to be cashed in our businesses. Our commercial crimes unit is looking at those, but the last couple weeks we've seen that. We've seen some skimming happening activity at some of our ATMs. That is ongoing. Once we've identified where those occur, I'm sure we'll send out something by social media where that's happening. So when you're using ATM machines, you can't see a skimming device because they're embedded in there, but it is happening in Tigard. So want to draw your attention to that. And again, we're seeing still an increase in, as our businesses open up, we have seen an increase in some of our thefts. Breaking into vehicles. So if you are leaving your car parked unattended, please do not leave anything of value that's visible. Just some of those kind of safety, educational awareness type things. So property crimes is really what we're seeing an uptick in. Oh, why do the traffic cameras flash so much? I actually get quite a bit of communication on that. And there's a number of factors. First, we usually say an intersection covers all approaches. And so just because you see a flash and you haven't done anything doesn't mean that somebody just made a turn on red without stopping. So don't assume that because you didn't do anything that somebody else didn't. But again, those are vetting out processes through the vendor first and then to an officer to see if there's any violations. However, we have seen and been brought to our attention that, especially in the hall in 99, that doesn't seem to be the case. And so again, we're working with the vendor on calibration. What the lights will do is, if you maintain the speed, they assume that you can't stop, and it's a preemptive flash, when in fact you may have stopped and not committed a violation, but the flash is anticipating. We'll never see those, but the camera still goes off. And then there's just some that we're having to make sure the vendor is calibrating. So we're still very much in the analysis mode, but again, there's 2 tiers before you're ever going to see a citation, and the last one being the officer has to see it's a clear violation of any wrongdoing before you'll get a citation. So I hate to say that, but trust the process. We're working on it. We have to look at it. We have to visibly see the violation. So don't just go by the flash in and of itself. But I know that that's still unnerving. I know that you shouldn't have to wonder and wait if you're going to get a citation. So I'm acknowledging that's an uncomfortable feeling, and we'll continue to hopefully decrease the number of unnecessary flashing. Some people want to know a little bit more about National Night Out. That has been around for as I've been in law enforcement for 34 years, and it's been a movement, a concept, and an official entity where the whole premise is to get to know your neighbors, to share your phone numbers, to share your names, to know what you're doing, so that you can check on each other's property. If you see something concerning, then you can call it in or call them first. And so it really is saying we're better together. If we're all looking out for each other, you know what's going on, you can call us, you can work with your neighbors and make those strong connections. Because more eyes are out there, because as you know, as we're patrolling or going from call to call, we can't be in every neighborhood. And so with more eyes and ears out there, we can probably prevent crime from happening. But what we're also doing now is also reminding people, under that premise, we always said, if you don't know them or they're quote unquote suspicious, call it in. And we really want to make sure that in this day and age of people staying in their homes more and not interacting, they may actually be your neighbor and you haven't got to know them, and then you call in that they're suspicious. And that's not something that we want to encourage people to do either. And again, just because you don't know them, or unfortunately we get calls of a person of color who is a neighbor doesn't know them and they're calling them in. So when we ask, or our call receivers ask, well, what else are they doing besides the fact that you don't know them? What is suspicious about them being in your area? Simply walking is not suspicious. Are they looking into cars? Are they going onto somebody's property? So again, we're going to do a lot more education on what suspicious activity looks like to help all of us out. So again, focus on suspicious activity and not the person. So another caller wants to know what role the Tigard Police Department has in the Transformation Committee. If you've seen the draft, it does call for the police chief or designee to be part of that committee. Also, a police union representative would be in that committee as well, because again, some of the recommendations may fall within the collective bargaining agreement. So I've been a part of this. I've been a part of the discussions right from the get-go. I understand what the mayor is and the council is trying to create. I understand what the community wants is a discussion, wants to look at a lot of different topics, and this commission may be the format to do that. And to imagine what policing could look like in the future. And so we have an active role in this. There is an education part that I've been afforded that I will be able to actually talk about what we currently do or why we do the things we do, and then be able to say what concerns somebody has, or maybe challenge and say, we feel uncomfortable that you're doing this, and we can have that dialogue. So we are very much a part of this, but we are just a piece of this, and it really will be community driven if done the way we envision it to be. So again, what else can I share with you? Oh, again, it goes along with the Transformation Commission. And if you see the draft, there are a lot of topics that potentially they can talk about. But I also want you to know that the legislature is looking at it, what they can mandate statewide, so that any law enforcement agency may be under this umbrella. So let me give you some of the topics that they're looking at. Tear gas and munitions. So again, the ability to deploy them, not only in a riot situation, but also as a tactical when your SWAT teams are using it in a hostage negotiation situation. So that's a conversation. Police officers' uniform identification, unmarked police vehicles, police duty to report misconduct modifications. We're also looking at the chokehold ban, which again, I remind you that Tigard already has that. Arbitration and uniform standards of police conduct and discipline, making it a statewide mandate. Officer discipline records and database, again, a statewide database. Statewide disciplinary standards task force. A use of force definition modernization. Public police misconduct and discipline database. And then a statewide use of force database and reporting. So all of these topics are being discussed as we speak. You can go onto the Oregon Legislative website. You can listen in. You can hear past conversations. You can even do testimony, both written or verbal. You have that opportunity. So for those who may have a passion in following along, this is a great resource, and I would encourage anybody to hear the discussions that are happening currently. So Jeremy wants to know, if you see something that isn't right, say something. I agree. And I think that comes, not sure, Jeremy, what all you're saying, both from in the community, but also, if you see something that's concerning, even with the conduct of our officers, say something. Bring it to our attention. You've attached a number. I'm not familiar, but I'll share it. 503-629-0111. And Jeremy, feel free to write in a little bit more about that to make sure I've spoken properly on your intent. Another question is, how are you planning to connect with communities of color, limited English population? COVID has put a damper on it a little bit as far as our outreach. There's a couple things we have done. We've contracted with Unite Oregon that is helping us bridge that. So they're going out to our communities of color in Tigard and hearing all the concerns, whether it's COVID, access to city services, to policing. And they're bringing that back to us. So they are kind of the buffer right now. And we've done a phase 1 outreach of that, and we're looking at a phase 2 coming up. And if it still can't be in person to get us all together, then we'll look at what is the next best thing. But we do have Unite Oregon going out into our communities of color, definitely with limited English speaking, and trying to get that information. The next thing that we're also looking at is developing a chat with the chief in Spanish. And we have Spanish-speaking officers, and so we're looking at how we might be able to facilitate that, to be able to have our non-English speaking community. And right now, I apologize, it will probably be in Spanish first, see how that goes, and then maybe perhaps we can talk about other languages as well if the requests come in. But we are looking to see how we can do that outreach as well. And then, of course, I think, as you saw with the draft concept of the Transformational Commission, it is heavily with the BIPOC community, and again, our Latinx population. We hope to have a couple of representation on there and also be able to bring concerns through that commission as well. Okay, and that number, thanks for the clarification, that phone number is a non-emergency line for the city. Yes, so if you, city and Washington County. So if you do see something, you don't feel that it is an emergency, you can use that non-emergency number to call it in. And if we have an officer available, then we can dispatch an officer to what you may be calling in about. I've shared with you, we just published a report card as we finished 2 years into our 3-year strategic plan on all of our accomplishments thus far. I'm very proud of that. You will also be able to access on our website our 2-year annual report, our biennial report. We did not publish one last 2018 due to all the levy outreach we were doing and just the workload that was put on our public information officer and our community outreach coordinator, and simply something had to give. And so we decided we would go ahead and do a 2-year biennial report, and that has been published. So again, I encourage all of you to go to our website, see what the last 2 years have looked like. It does talk about our strategic plan, the fact that we are accredited, the fact that we implement 21st century policing pillars, which started after, if you going back a couple years after Ferguson and when President Obama was in office. So there's a lot of good pillars or concepts that we've adopted here. And just leveraging data technology, our transparency. So go ahead and take a look at that and tell me what you think. Hey, Michael, sorry if this has been asked already, but I read that police services budget was slightly reduced this year. Can you quantify what slightly reduced means? Perfect. Thank you, Michael, for that. We saw that it was a misprint. We were able to provide that reporter with the accurate information. It was not reduced. And we have that information. And Michael, with Tiger Life, we'd be happy to provide that information to you as well. But that is not the case. It has actually increased. And then, of course, with the levy, that's only going to add more. So it has not been reduced at all. Yes, Jeremy, you are a wealth of information. Also, he's reminding me that we have our tip line. And again, if you see something, have some tips, the community tip line is 503-718-COPS, C-O-P-S. Or you can go to tips@tigard-or.gov. So again, those are great resources that are available to you. Connie, hey, how are you doing? And thanks for checking in. Connie says, thank you, Chief, for your excellent communication. And, Connie and Tiger Turns the Tide, you have been a great ambassador for our youth and for our community. I appreciate your support and the support of the police department, and I know that you are very passionate about our school resource officers. So I look forward to working with you and hopefully doing more things with all the effort and great things you could do with Tiger Turns the Tide. So thank you. And Robert asks, have you done ride-alongs at these different times, responding to different calls to see for yourself? Oh, have I done ride-alongs? I think you're asking, or not, do we do them? I have to tell you, in the early time here, I was out in the car a whole lot more. One, getting to know the community, especially during our outreach. Since the killing of George Floyd, my focus and priority has been in a different, that gets me in a lot of meetings, conversations, and it doesn't get me out in the field as much as I would like to. So no, I'm not out there as much as I would like to right now, but that always has been part of my, the way that I lead is to be able to get that out there when time does allow. So Aaron, your question, we've seen across the world how good or poorly police have responded to a person in custody that says, I can't breathe. Have you guys thought about dealing with someone with physical limitations if they say, I can't raise or keep my arms up or put them behind my back? How are officers trained if they are any different for someone who you can't really see the disability? That's a great question, Aaron, and there's a lot to that. First and foremost, we do have our policies that say you won't restrict somebody's breathing. And so when somebody's telling you that they cannot breathe, whether it's because your body weight is on their chest or, you're restricting their airway, which we shouldn't be doing. You should be listening and responding. We do, like I said, we have dash cam video and others where I've seen where people are having trouble breathing and we sit them up and reposition them. There are ways, and we have policies when somebody self-discloses they have maybe a shoulder injury, and can we put the handcuffs in front of them as opposed to back? And we assess all of that to make sure that, one, there is no risk to us or the person in custody, but we will make those accommodations as they're brought to our attention. For the ones that you can't see, very hard to deal with because we're relying on the person to communicate if they're in pain or they're unable to, if they can't breathe, you don't want to wait till they turn blue or the lips are turning blue. But any other disabilities, you're right, we're relying on them to communicate with us. If there is somebody who does not speak, we might be able to get translators, but again, if they're in pain, that may take some time. So there is training that we look at. There is policies that tell us to assess people. If they complain of pain or injury, we will have them checked out by the fire department prior to transporting them anywhere, and we'll document that as well. So we do have a lot of protocols in place to handle that. Counselor Lube, thank you. You called in. Thank you for your holding these chats with the chief and communicating with our community. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you on the counselors' live chats, and keep doing what you're doing. And we're only better when we're working together. So look forward to more. Aaron, thank you for the support, and thank you for your questions. I appreciate it. They're timely and spot on, and I appreciate the conversation. Michelle, you said, I've lived here all my life. I can say you've done well as our chief of police. Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. That means a lot to me. And policing is tough because, again, sometimes you're dealing with people at their worst. You're dealing with people at their crisis. And sometimes it's very difficult what we're being asked to do. And I just appreciate when people take the time to understand what we do and the decisions that we make at the time based on the best information. And again, we're always looking at ways that we can do things better. So we can only be better by having the dialogue and what our community expects from their police agency, because we are here to serve you. We are your guardians, and we want to live up to your expectations. So again, I really appreciate the engagement. That means a lot to all of us. So we have about 6 minutes. So if there's something that maybe I didn't catch, please, you have a few minutes to send them our way. again, this will give me a minute as you're thinking about this. The behind the scenes, I have 2 great support staff that help me see your questions in a timely manner and be able to respond as timely as I can. So I'm going to shout out to my behind the scenes. They don't want to come up in front of this camera because that's just who they are, but I cannot do this by myself. And I just want a shout out to our support staff. I won't call them out by name, but they do a great job and they help make this go smoothly, because I am not the most technically savvy person there is. And so without them, I could probably not do this as well, or I'd probably hit the mute button or something. So again, we have about 5 minutes. Any other last questions, concerns? I'm going to also look at my notes, because again, I always want to see if there's something else that I want to share with you that I may not have got a chance to do. I think I've been blessed with being able to cover a lot of things. The recent article, again, let me, one last time on the school resource officers. There'll be, look for outreach and opportunities, especially for our communities who have kids and you're concerned one way or another, whether you want to see school resource officers in there or want to see it done differently or not at all. Please look. There's an article that came out today about the school resource officer program and what TTSD is doing, how they're vetting this out and wanting to do listening sessions. So again, I really encourage you to keep an eye on that and stay as engaged as you want, and because they're going to be listening, and your voice is the most powerful thing you have right now. Again, thank you for everybody for your comments of support. I am going to once again thank all of you on behalf of the men and women of this police department. They've seen the cards, they've seen the emails and the support that you guys have taken the time to let us know how you feel. And even those who have concerns, I appreciate that dialogue just as much. And I look, forward to hearing the concerns and how we can do it better. In fact, when I leave this live chat in a couple minutes, I get the opportunity to meet a concerned community member who wants to talk about their experiences, and those conversations are invaluable. So keep them coming, and hopefully in another month, we try and do these monthly if we can, as long as there's still interest. We'll keep these Facebook Chat with the Chief going until I can actually see you all in person. Mike had one last one. As one of the early recipients of one of the new tickets, oh, Michael, I'm so sorry. I'm curious how many tickets the new red light speeding cameras are generating. So next week in my presentation, August 11th council meeting, I will say what the numbers are for photo enforcement, both photo red light and the speed. That'll be our first numbers. I don't have them yet, but that's one way. And again, we're posting it on our transparency page, and so you will be able to look at those monthly. And so we're always a month behind. So for August, you'll see July's and so forth. But I will tell you on the speed, there are quite a few. And so again, if you're going over 11 miles per hour through those intersections, please reconsider your speed. And last but not least, Jeremy says, if possible, as time permits, please patrol the Steve Street Park area. It's better now, but police presence is helpful. Duly noted, Jeremy. Thank you. So what can you expect from Tigard Police going forward? More engagement, more dialogue, continued transparency, continue to answer your questions and concerns. We will be out there patrolling your neighborhoods, and then we'll see what the Public Safety Transformational Commission entails as we move that forward, who's interested, how those dialogues can go. So I think what you're going to see is a lot of activity. As a city, we're still doing our anti-racist government plans. And so please continue to look at what activities and actions that we're doing as an entire city, not just the police department. So stay tuned, and I am going to sign off for now, and thank you again. I always appreciate it. Take care.